welcome back to the Science of Wellness. Today, we're diving into the future of workplace wellness and cognitive performance and the role of neuroscience in shaping how we live and work. Today, I'm joined by Christian Høding, the CEO and co founder of Herd, a Danish neurotech company that is redefining how we understand mental well being at work. So, together with his team, Christian has built a platform that uses in-ear neurotechnology to provide real-time insights into cognitive health. He measures things like stress, focus, and mental effort. And they also offer actionable strategies to improve performance and prevent burnout. So in this episode, we'll explore Christian's personal wellness journey, the story behind founding Herd, and why traditional corporate wellness programs often miss the mark. We'll also unpack the power and the misconceptions behind using brain data in the workplace, what most companies are underestimating about employee performance, and then the ethical future of neurotech. So, Christian, thank you for joining me today. And for the listeners, let's settle in and let's get right into it. So, Christian, what does wellness mean to you personally? And how has your definition of wellness evolved throughout time?
Thanks for asking the question. It's very important. Well, wellness to me is the ability to feel good, perform well while I'm working, and to be energized while I'm being with my loved ones. And wellness, in the sense of habits, on my end, consists of daily breath work. It consists of regular sauna group sessions, and it consists of doing as simple as daily recognition and acknowledgement of the things I'm grateful for, because that actually allows me to shift my focus away from all the things that I don't have right now, which will come, and instead focus on the things that I've achieved so far and the things that I'm grateful for. And that automatically shifts my mindset, which is also a part of my wellness. So it's not only just doing physical stuff, I also regularly go to training and work out, and that's super great. I've been doing that a lot. But the mental health side of it, doing regular exercises that promotes better brain health, that is something that I prioritize for myself. And I also prioritize it to be a better version of myself towards my loved ones.
I absolutely love that you mentioned workplace and family, because I think a lot of programs actually they focus on either corporate or your workplace health, or either your family health, or even your fitness. So it's amazing that you say that wellness to you is all of that aspects combined into one. And I love that you mentioned gratefulness, because that is something that I've seen time and again. It makes a huge difference in overall health, wellness. So thank you for mentioning that.
And I think also, like, just to add on that, you can't really separate the two. So like if you're having problems privately, getting divorced or whatever, that obviously impacts you also in your daily work life and the colleague you are towards your, mutual colleagues, and the person you are when you're delivering quality output. The things are linked up with each other. And that's also why, you have to be aware of the two being aligned. Of course, there will be some periods of your life where they're not, but but that also comes with learning and figuring out how can I make it more aligned, so I can perform well at the job, but I can also feel good when I'm at home with my loved ones and relax, because that is definitely needed in order to sustain high performance, high well-being over time.
Yes, and being present in the moment. Totally agree with that. Okay, so Christian, the next question I want to ask is your background and what actually brought you into the current field of work.
Interesting. So I have a background in consulting, mostly working within pharmaceutical tech, working with large pharmaceutical companies. I've always known that my interest lies within the digital, but also the health side of doing business. I think it's super interesting, and it's also something that led me to start this company. I always knew I wanted to create a difference for other people. I just didn't know what it would be. And now I'm in neurotech, so that's super interesting. But I think my own journey also in getting to know myself has also led me to creating this company that I have today with Herd. When you're a strategy consultant, you get to experience different sides of a company, and you also experience different sides of people. So I've obviously talked and worked with a lot of people from different companies, and what I usually saw was for those companies where well-being and general mental health focus is not super high, well then they are also having people that are burned out and not that much energized, and they're not feeling that well while they're being at their job, and they're spending so much time after being on job just recovering until the next day starts. So that's also why I started to look into, what is this problem causing for companies, but also for individuals inside of companies. So I obviously did my research before quitting my safe job as a consultant, and that's what we're building now. We're building a solution that not only just gives the individual insights on their cognitive health, but also provides them with suggestions on what they can do on a daily basis to be at a better place and to promote more well-being for themselves, but also within the company that they're in. And then obviously the performance side of it, cognitive performance is very important. And we have all experienced if we're having too many meetings without breaks, our performance slowly reduces, and we're not able to focus that much, and the output we deliver is not as great as if we were more aware of what we do.
Yes, I've personally experienced that with back to back meetings. And I actually became aware of the cognitive performance when I read a study about, or they actually showed the MRI scans of your brain with back to back meetings, and then your brain activity when you have a bit of a break, even just a short walk between meetings. And that huge difference it actually makes in your creativity and how well you perform and how well you think. It's something really important to consider. Now I just want to jump into Herd. What is it specifically? Now you've mentioned the corporate aspect of it. You've mentioned the neuroscience aspect of it. But how would you define Herd?
And that's a big question. How I would define it is obviously we're a Danish neurotech company that helps employees gain insights on their cognitive health on a daily basis through our application. And we also provide leaders with the help they need on an anonymized basis to help them have departments that are thriving, not only on the well-being side of it, but they're also thriving on the performance side of it. The name Herd actually means in Nordish, in Danish, it means protector. And in our sense, the storytelling is around having your own protector on demand while you're being at work and while you're being in your private life. And that is something that I definitely can see the need of. It's super important to have, I'm saying, someone who can support you, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, whether it's your employer. There is a need for this. And what we have done is we're providing the supporter in the sense that the individual now can gain insights on what they can do to promote a more healthier cognitive health.
Okay, that is great. And I think there's definitely a bigger space that companies like you need to take up because it's needed. And a lot of corporates, they are falling behind and they are burning out. And I'm seeing the amount it costs companies these days because of burnout. So it's amazing the work that you're doing. So I just want to know, what do you think about traditional corporate wellness programs? So the ones that are often led by human resources. And the reason I want to ask about this is because these traditional corporate wellness programs, they usually fail to move the needle in any sense. It's usually just like something, a day off or something like that. And then how can Herd actually come in and fix what these corporate wellness programs are missing?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's better to have workplace wellness program as they are today than not having them. So I just
Yes,
want to
of
acknowledge
course.
that, by
Mm.
doing something, you're at least starting to do something. If it's not the total comprehensive way of doing it, that's fine. That we can do something about. But just being in motion and doing something about it, I think that's great. I think if I wanted to just comment on the current initiatives that are being, placed out in companies, I would say typically in a traditional HR position, you're using engagement service once a year or every quarter to gain a perspective on where are we as a company, where are we in terms of employees' well-being, performance, etc., so that HR, get a view of that. it's always based on subjective data, which can be biased, and it could be based on the current moment, if they got promotion, or if they're cutting costs in the company. That will obviously impact the individual's responses right now at that moment where the engagement survey is taking place. So I'm thinking in terms of having this approach, it distance the HR, the company, with their employees, because it's not really showing how they're actually feeling throughout the year, but it's showing them, of course, what are the areas we need to improve on while they respond to the survey at that moment. And oftentimes, companies with these wellness programs are more around reactive. So they're reacting when something occurs, and then they go into solving mode and try to find a way. But at that point in the time of the individual who's not feeling well, it's too late often. And it ends up them going on sick leave. It ends up them either leaving the company. So there's also something around retention. And to answer your second question around how we as a company believe that there's more to just using subjective data in our corporate wellness programs. You need objective data to allow the individual to actually gain insights into their own health and well-being on a daily and weekly and monthly and yearly basis, both for the sake of the individual to give them something for themselves, but also for the sake of the company as an organization and for the long-term success of the company, because leaders are typically not educated within neuroscience, health, coaching. That's why they need the support, and they will just be guessing on what their employees are feeling if they just get subjective data that are not really telling the accurate truth on how the departments are doing. So there's definitely a need in integrating both objective and subjective data inside the workplace wellness programs, because we've all seen it. Health is a number one priority for most people these days, and it's becoming more of a priority for companies. And what I've seen, at least, is companies who prioritize initiatives around employee health, employer well-being, they're leading the way, and they're also getting the talents that that wants to have an employer that prioritizes this. They have a great way of attracting new people because they prioritize this for themselves. So if you say the current assets for most companies is they use engagement surveys to conduct data on the well-being quarterly, yearly, and that output provides them with a current situation of what employees are feeling right now. It's based on feelings, where with a solution where you provide both of the things, both the surveys and the objective data from a device, well, then you not only just give the feelings a view, but you also base it on science and objective knowledge that you can't really, predict or impact as an individual. And it also helps the individuals gain insights that they can use for themselves. Basically, the surveys are more like company-wide, more aggregated and high level, where with a workplace well-being program that provides both is much more detailed and it's much more personalized to the individual.
That is great, because I think the objective data you also mentioned now with the leaders, the objective data clearly takes away that additional stress on the leaders to try and figure out what their team actually needs. So that is amazing.
Adding to that, a second point is when you are using corporate wellness programs or whatever we call it, that is solely based on survey data, it also requires the individuals to take time aside to actually sit down and respond to the surveys. And if they don't have that much time and they're stressed, they just, power through it, and then they submit the survey response. And then that not really gives an accurate view on how the individual is feeling. And that actually hurts the insights the company gets. Because, of course, at the end of the day, companies right now that are only using surveys, they can't really do much more than what they get in return. So there's also responsibility in the individual providing data, a perspective on what they're actually feeling. Because if they don't, well, then companies would put in initiatives based on that data output, and they may not be the right solution.
Yes, that is the biggest problem now. I've seen time and again when working with corporate leaders that even when they say they are sleeping, just as an example, they are sleeping 6 hours, when you actually go and look at their data, their wearable data, they aren't sleeping close to 6 hours. So it is a great initiative that you are actually taking to use more objective data, but with the survey data, combining that. Okay, so Christian, now I want to ask you about, you've mentioned about the surveys. Now, using objective data, so you are, let's say I'm working at one of the companies you are involved with. Now, what is the misconceptions that or the misunderstandings about this constant brain data in a workplace setting? And do people actually like to do it?
I think some of the biggest misconceptions is that breaks are for later, they're not for now. And I can't do that because I have so many things I have to do now. So, and it doesn't help me. I mean, most people know that breaks is needed and it may help them, but they don't do it. And the fact that they don't do it actually will, so they have this conception of I have to just work in order to get the output ready so I can deliver the slides to the CEO or whoever it is. But actually, you could still do that, and you can maybe do that faster if you're actually providing yourself with the needed breaks, and also if you take time out, because actually just a focus on recovery is actually also helping you perform way better in the long term and also on the short term. And I think also I would say a misconception is also like we just have to sit in Teams meetings all day long to be as productive as possible. But what it's actually showing is that when you do that, you are not as productive. And maybe you could still be somehow present in these team meetings you're in, but you're actually spending way more cognitive capacity to be in those meetings. And it's actually stressing your brain more than it would be doing if you were holding the necessary breaks between meetings. So we've all seen, and data also supports this, that if you don't plan these regular breaks throughout the day and you just, proceed into the next meeting and the next meeting, then over time productivity decreases significantly and you're not as focused and you're not as sharp in your communication, and your memory is also affected when you don't do this. So I think that the biggest misconception that we all tend to have somehow is that we just need to power through. We just need to get it done. Like we don't have time to breaks now. I'll just sit down and get it done. And you can do that, but the consequences are headache and you're not as focused and sharp afterwards. And if you tend to do that over time, it accumulates and the consequences just become more and more.
Yeah, so I'm definitely guilty of that. And I've even tried the method of blocking time in my calendar for breaks. But then when the break comes, then I think, okay, I'm almost done with this. So let me just quickly get this done. And then I'm way past the break. So how do you actually alert people to take a break? And are you, because I saw on the website, it's earbuds. So do the people permanently wear them at work? And yeah, how do you alert them? Is it a beep or what happens?
It's not a beep. It's a notification that you receive based on a given threshold. So if your focus has been decreasing over a period of time, you'll get a notification that you may be benefiting from taking a break. It doesn't give you notification all the time, and the notifications are quite often really very simple because it shouldn't be complicated to optimize your cognitive health. It should be something that people can do on a daily basis. So it's a notification that is received on your phone if the threshold of your objective metrics goes down a certain period of time. Then you're receiving the notification, and then you're receiving a suggestion on what you can do to improve it to get back to your baseline.
That is amazing. And I think the data that you're gathering, it must be so interesting. I really hope you publish something sometime with it because I would love to read it.
So we are a software company that has made some software that uses neurotechnology. We are not the ones who produce the hardware we use. We're partnering up with a company called Emotive, the leading neurotech hardware company in the whole world. That they've done 10,000 scholarly research showing how you could use neurotech inside of research and so on. So if you're interested and your listeners are interested, a lot of scholarly research that have been made on what neurotechnology can be used for in daily work life and also private life as an individual.
Great. Thank you so much for mentioning. I will definitely have a look at that. But okay, while we are on the data aspect, what has surprised you the most in all the aggregated brain data that you've gathered now from the companies? And have you seen any specific trends? Let's say if there's specific roles that people are involved in, or industries, or even times of day.
I would say oftentimes it is the comparison between the subjective data, what people are feeling, if they're feeling stressed or not, or if they're feeling well or not, and then the objective insights we give them based on cognitive stress levels, their focus levels, and how much mental effort they put into solving a task. Oftentimes we actually have seen that, some people have the perception of not being stressed, but when we look into the objective data, something else is showing. So that is obviously something that a lot of companies and leaders are very interested in getting to know, because typically it's ambitious people, talented people that just want to, get things done, and they're so passionate about it, but and then they forget, everything. Having those people aware of it before it ends in a burnout, because they are just humans. Some people have a higher stress tolerance than others, but they also have the worst case outcome of being burned out because they don't take care of their mental health and brain health. And another thing is obviously the time periods throughout a day where people are experiencing more focus and less stress. It really depends on the individual. So I can't say like these type of people would be spending their time wisely if they conduct focus session between 8 and 11. It's very much based on the individual's behavior and habits. But what I can say is, if I were to just talk about myself in the sense that if I plan scheduled focus sessions between 8 and 11, I can see that my productivity is way higher. I'm much more sharp, and the data also shows that. If I then conduct a session after lunch, and I've been eating like super heavy lunch, that actually also impacts my focus levels, my stress levels, and how much mental effort I put into solving a task or sitting in a Teams meeting. So I think those trends are like quite clear for us. We have probably all experienced it in some sense. If we conduct physical exercises and we've just been eating just before, it impacts the performance while we conduct the exercise. And similar here, you can say all have scheduled lunches throughout the day while we're being at work. And actually, the diet you consume is actually also impacting your cognitive performance. That is something I can speak for myself, and that is obviously something that has a lot of science that backs up the diet you have, things you're serving for your employees actually have an impact on cognitive performance.
So, with your actionable insights that you're giving, are you also helping individuals make those better decisions, like now what you said with your eating, if you're eating a heavier meal or lighter meal?
Yeah, so on an individual level, it's personalized insights and suggestions they'll receive in our app. And then on the dashboard side, we have everything anonymized. All the data is anonymized. But what we can see is when we combine the subjective data with the objective data, we give them insights, but we also give them suggestions on what they can do to improve. And those are based on what the leader in the department can do. Of course, we're not the ones implementing, but we're showing them data and suggestions on what they can do as a leader to help the department. And then we're also partnering up with coaches who provide the one-on-one sessions with the individuals. So if we can say that there's a focus around energy or well-being or workload based on the survey data, and we can see that the objective data showing higher stress, lower focus, and higher mental effort throughout a day, then it's something that the coach would also take into his or her practice while they're having one-on-one meetings with the leaders, with the employees. So yes, we are a data-driven service that provides the leader with data. We're not experts in coaching. We're not experts in diet, but we can provide them with the necessary insights and suggestions on what they can do to implement it. And then we, of course, also partner up with experts within the mental health sector that can help the individuals take their personal insights into account and help them implement new things in their basically.
Okay, this is all very interesting, and I wish I could have seen the data that you are producing. It sounds amazing. Now, just another question that I want to ask specifically on your corporate athlete program. How long is this program? And then, other than how long it is, I also want to know, is there something, a case study that have come out? You've been involved with a few companies, something that came up that really stuck with you, and then something that made you pause and think, but this is exactly why we built Herd in the first place?
So to answer the first question, so our program is starting with 4 weeks and then it's extended into unlimited time periods. So our focus is to be there with the client, with the employees, with the leaders on an ongoing basis. So it's just not a quick fix. So we actually always starting with the 4 weeks, showing the company, the leader, and the employees the benefit of tracking your cognitive health and gaining insights on a personal and on a department level on what you can do. For the second question, we have obviously been working with several companies within different sectors, but I think the one that has stuck so far is one of the more like health-related companies we've been working with. So they experienced that when we work with their employees across different departments, every Monday people were super energized. The objective data was showing that they had lower stress levels, they were higher focused, and they spent less mental effort solving the tasks that they were known of. But then on a Thursday, and it was just not one person, it was across all the departments that were a part of it. We were seeing that they had low energy levels. That was also what they responded with. They were not as energized, and they were generally had higher stress levels. There was a correlation between what they responded in the survey and then the objective data points. And what that actually gave, and not only the individuals that we gave suggestions on what they can do to improve, but what also gave the leader a view on how the departments are doing, something that they wouldn't know that if they just had sent out a survey, because they wouldn't be tracking and comparing that with objective data that could actually show them if this is it just a feeling, or is it actually something that is also taking place based on objective data. So I think, like, just also going back to my reason for starting this business and being a part of a startup is the ability to change behaviors and help people. I think that was the example with this company actually helped the leader get more aware of what they could do to improve their department's well-being. That obviously led to us continue working with them, because they could see, like, they have always just been using subjective data, and that had gained them the results they had before we came in. But being able to see a different side of it because you're using objective data is actually something that could not only just benefit the company's well-being, but also the performance of the individuals. Because if you're missing out on Thursday and Friday because people are not performing that well, they're not feeling well, well, it actually also ends up hurting the bottom line on a more financial point of view. On a more people side, you have the retention rate, which is just going to be reducing significantly if you're not prioritizing your employees inside your organization. And then there's obviously something that is a little unspoken about is being present but not being present. You're present with stress, and if you don't take it seriously, being present with stress can over time really, really impact the individual's well-being, but also their performance. So even though they're not on sick leave, they're not like directly alerted in the system as a person we need to be aware of. That individual is still causing the business overall performance to be reduced over time. So it's really also a matter of taking those initiatives before it ends up being initiative that you have to do. If you have a person going on sick leave, you can't really do that much about it. You need to support the individual as best as possible. But having a more preventive focus from the start, being more proactive, is actually what helps you in the long run.
That's great. Yeah, because I think there's a lot of issues currently in different workplaces where people they are so overwhelmed and so stressed. And then with personal stress also adding on top of that, your performance and your productivity, it will take a knock. And it's amazing that you are working with the leaders, the team leaders, to help the teams make them more resilient, but then also give them the support that they really do need. So, Christian, now I also want to ask you, now we are all using something like a Slack or an email or a smartwatch. Do you think that tracking your cognitive performance with a device like you have, will it become normal in companies? I hope so. I think it's amazing. But do you also think there's some ethical lines that people might be afraid of and that you will need to be careful not to cross?
So I think neurotech is the is the next big thing within wearable technology, because we are becoming so much used to tracking our steps and our exercises. It's becoming more and more a part of our daily life. So I definitely think that the cognitive health tracking using a headphone is just becoming more and more normal. Of course, there will always be some ethical stuff that you have to focus on. That's also why privacy is number one priority for us, for the companies and the employees in particular we work with. There will always be something that triggers some people to be more cautious about. Like, I don't want to give my data out to my employer. And I think it's very important to say here, it's the individual who owns the data. So it's not the company that owns the data of each individual's recordings using the headset. And everything that we provide the employer with is anonymized. So you wouldn't as an employee have the thought of someone recording you and tracking you to be able to see how you're doing. It is still on an aggregated level that they can see how you're doing. So it's not you in particular, it is the department.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
the key is privacy, it is consent from the individuals, and it is also about like educating companies and employees in the importance of not only just looking in, wearable techs within physical health. So like for those people that are sitting on offices and have a full-time job, they are super much in online meetings all day, becoming more and more normal. And yes, they can prioritize to have that workout in the morning or after work, but they don't know really that much of in the time period where they meet and when they go home, what does that actually have as consequences for their cognitive health. So yes, the short answer, it's a part of the future. The potential for how it can help the individual and the companies is huge, and it's only something that's going to be more and more looked into, because we're seeing the problem around mental health, stress, sick leaves, just going one way, and that is unluckily the wrong way. So we need new things to get new results that are not the same as we have right now with people on sick leave and increased stress rates. I think it will be slowly implemented into the daily work life of the individuals. As a part of our long-term vision is that we are looking into partnering up with well-known brands that are providing headsets for companies that they are working with while they're having client meetings. And when it becomes more and more normal, then that the headset you'll be wearing, whether it's our headset or someone else's, if that uses EEG, then you're able to have those insights. And that's where we see the future will go. More and more will have those cognitive health insights integrated into their headsets, because let's just face it, we don't know what is happening up here unless we get a scan, and unless we really see throughout a day using a monitor or something to see what the different actions we do actually have of consequences. So we can feel well in our mind, but it can actually be a lot worse if we're not aware of it, and if we not take daily actions to help us out.
Yes, exactly. That is, we feel well, but we aren't necessarily. And it is so exciting that you're mentioning about the headsets. And I really hope it works out for you and you get to partner with tons of different companies, because I can just see the potential of this. You've also mentioned a little bit earlier on with your actionable insights that you give to the employees. But now we are all very busy. And how do you get the employees to actually prioritize the notification that's coming from your headset and not just think about it as another notification, like me with my calendar blocks that I just keep ignoring and keep working?
I mean, as a start, we show them the consequences of a daily work life while they're having the headset on, and what the different spikes show in their cognitive health data. Around the notification, of course, to avoid just being another notification, we're making the notification very simple. We're not bombarding them with notifications all the time. It's only given to the individual when we can see that the stress levels has gone up across a time period, and if their focus has been reduced or whatever it may be. So I think we're keeping the notification simple. We're not showing them all the time, and we're only showing them when they really need to make an action to change something. And they can typically also feel that themselves, that they've been sitting in meetings all day, and that their focus levels has gone down and their stress has gone up. So I think the answer is with a solution like ours, we have to start by just slowly showing them data on the consequences of their actions throughout the day has on their cognitive health. And then by giving them notifications that are simple, easy to use, and easy to implement on a daily basis, that will allow us to stand out from the other notification they have. But again, it very much goes down to the individual and their behavior, because if they just are planning meetings every day and they're not changing their behaviors based on the data we provide them with, then we won't have that much of an impact on that individual. Of course, there is an investment for the individual themselves in making this work, but we're doing as much as possible to make the notification simple, only to give them notifications when the thresholds goes beyond a certain period of time, and provide them with something they can use.
Yes, if the individual doesn't want to change, you can't do anything with that. But you'll turn a lot of people with just showing them the consequences. What I want to know from you, you've already mentioned right at the start of the episode that you balance your workplace and your family, and you're looking at it at a more holistic way, and you're also incorporating gratefulness. But now, if you look at the data that you're getting from these companies, and if there's something that you can give a leader or an employee, a takeaway for them to start doing this week to help support their mental health and the health of their teams, what would you recommend them to start doing?
I think the first thing is stop glorifying constant busyness. Being constant busy is a very dangerous sentence to put out all the time, because your brain also, it adapts to that. So you're constantly just being in the alertness stage of, of your current life, that actually impacts the consequences of, how you're feeling. And I think my most important takeaway and tip to a leader here is recovery, especially cognitive recovery, is just as important as physical recovery. And if you're sitting in meetings and you are a corporate athlete, well, you need those necessary breaks throughout the day to make sure that you can perform well over time, and that you can be, energized and a nice person to be around. So I think from data, it is showing that, having those blocked calendars that is solely dedicated to focus time, or have those breaks, whether you have them in your calendar or not, those are like crucial. And what we've seen both on our own experience is having those regular scheduled focus sessions or breaks is what can allow you to increase your cognitive performance over time. Because yes, your body can work and you can do stuff, but we've all experienced that, when we're sitting end of day and the headache's starting to come, and, we cannot focus that much. Well, that is typically due to the reason around not having the breaks, being disrupted so many times throughout the day actually also stresses your brain quite a lot. So again, the tip is simple. You have to encourage cognitive recovery for yourself in order for you to be a better version of yourself, in order for you to perform well while being at work, and in order for you to have more, energized and good life, because those two things, your body and mind, is very connected.
That is a great tip, and it's definitely something I need to focus on more, and I'm actively going to try and focus on it. Then, my last question for you today is, if there's one book or tool or practice that has had a profound impact on your life recently, what has it been?
First one is 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Very, I would say, very down to earth, simple book that brings up a lot of things in our life that we know we have to do better, but we end up not doing. And so that has obviously also sparked some new perspectives in my life and in my head. Around my practice, I would say having those non-negotiable recovery breaks. And it doesn't have to be a long recovery in order for you to feel better. It could be as simple as going for a walk daily, have those 10,000 or 15,000 steps in a day. That's one way of prioritizing the recovery. Or, just sitting and or reading a good book can also make a lot of great things in making you relax. And then I think from my side, it would be prioritizing those daily breathwork sessions that I have. Around 12 minutes is all it takes for me to just get back to reset and be able to be more present and perform better while I'm doing work, but also have more, you know, I'm just a better version of myself if I'm not just super overworked. And those 12 minutes can really do its wonder. You just need to, of course, start doing it. And it's just simple breathing exercises that everyone can do. And we also do it. Some do it more than others. But just scheduling that is what that has made a really, really big difference for me, both private and professionally.
That's amazing. And you've given so many really great tips today on how we can start focusing on our cognitive health and our performance. And thank you so much for sharing your journey and the story behind Herd, and also the powerful ways that data can help us to build more healthier and more resilient teams. So this brings us to the end of today's conversation, and I hope that the listeners will find this episode as fascinating as I did, especially around thinking about workplace wellness and all the means to exploring neurotech and how it can unlock all the new insights into our cognitive health and our performance. Christian, if there's any final thoughts or any final things you want to mention before I end off this episode?
I think the last thing I would say is prioritizing your cognitive health or mental health shouldn't be complicated and difficult to do. As simple things as going for a walk, prioritizing gratitude journaling on your phone or on a piece of paper. That is basic things you can start out with, and then you can always add to that. But those things will actually allow your mind also to shift towards more positive things and all the things you don't have right now that are impacting your mental health and at least also your brain health in terms of focus and stress. That is where it can do its wonders. So start with the simple things. It doesn't have to be complicated, and you don't have to implement everything from the start. You start by doing little steps, and then you can always, over time, add to that.
If this episode has sparked any new ideas for the listeners or any questions, I would love to hear from anyone. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and then share this episode with someone who'd benefit from it. And then until next time, take care and stay well.